At a family barbecue, my parents announced I'd be handing over my house to my sister because she's a real woman now. She has a husband, a baby, and a future. You've got, what, a dog? Everyone laughed. I just smiled, pulled out a folder, and said, "Funny you say that. Want to see the DNA test your future is built on?" I never thought my own family would try to steal my home. But when they laughed, dismissing my entire life, I knew I had to unleash a truth that would destroy everything they thought they had. It was a beautiful July afternoon, the kind where the air hangs warm and sweet with the smell of grilling burgers and freshly cut grass. Our family barbecue was in full swing, and I was busy at the grill, flipping food for what I thought was just another gathering. My golden retriever, Gus, sprawled contentedly under the patio table, occasionally lifting his head for a dropped crumb. He'd been my shadow for 3 years, a rescue I'd adopted shortly after buying this house. A house I'd worked myself to the bone for, saving every penny, making strategic career moves, and sacrificing more than anyone in my family seemed to remember. "This is such a beautiful property," Daniel said, appearing beside me. His tone felt off. "Must be worth quite a bit now, with how the market's been." I smiled politely, focusing on not burning the chicken. "Got lucky with the timing." He gave a hollow chuckle. "Right, luck." Emily joined us, her hand resting on her prominent baby bump. She was 5 months along, and ever since the announcement in March, my mother hadn't stopped talking about becoming a grandmother. Every conversation, it seemed, circled back to Emily's future, to the life she was building. "When are we eating?" Dad called from his lawn chair, beer in hand. "I'm starving over here." Dinner itself passed normally. We talked about work, the neighborhood, Daniel's recent promotion. Mom spent 20 minutes detailing the nursery plans. Emily beamed, soaking up the attention, just as she always had. Then came dessert. Mom stood, tapping her glass with a fork, the metallic clink silencing the table. "We have an announcement to make." My stomach clenched. Something in her expression, the way Dad straightened, set off alarm bells. "Your father and I have been discussing Emily and Daniel's situation," Mom continued. "With the baby coming, they need more space. Their apartment is just too small." Here it comes, I thought. They're going to ask if Emily can stay in my guest room. I'd already mentally rehearsed my refusal, my careful explanation about boundaries. What came next shattered every single one of my assumptions. "So," Dad announced, his voice carrying the finality of a judge's gavel, "we've decided that you'll be transferring the house to your sister. She needs it more than you do." The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "Excuse me?" "The house," Mom said, as if explaining to a child. "You'll sign it over to Emily and Daniel. They're starting a family. They need the room, the yard, the stability." My laugh was sharp, disbelieving. "You're joking." "We're completely serious," Emily said. Her voice had a nervous edge, but beneath it, I heard something else: entitlement, expectation. "Daniel and I have been looking at houses, but everything's so expensive. You already have this one, and it's perfect for us." "Perfect for you?" I repeated slowly, trying to process the sheer audacity. "This house that I bought, that I spent 6 years saving for, that I pay the mortgage on every single month?" "Don't be dramatic," Mom chided. "Family helps family. Your sister is a real woman now. She's got a husband, a baby, and a future. You've got what, a dog?" The laughter that erupted around the table hit me like physical blows. Uncle Mark nearly choked on his beer. Aunt Lisa wiped tears from her eyes. Even Daniel chuckled, though he had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. Gus lifted his head, sensing the sudden tension. I reached down, my fingers finding the soft fur behind his ears. The simple action grounded me, kept me from screaming. "A dog," I said quietly. "Yes. I have a dog." "Exactly." Dad jumped in, encouraged by the laughter. No husband, no kids, no real responsibilities. What do you need all that space for? You're just being selfish, keeping it to yourself when your sister actually needs it. Something cold, almost calm, settled over me. I'd spent my entire life watching Emily receive preferential treatment, the bigger bedroom, the car for her 16th birthday while I took the bus, college tuition paid in full while I worked 3 jobs and graduated with debt. Every milestone was celebrated for her. Every achievement of mine was met with distracted nods. But this was different. This wasn't just favoritism. This was theft, dressed up as family obligation. I need a minute, I said, standing. I left something inside. Don't take too long. Emily called after me. We want to discuss the timeline for the transfer. I walked into my house, my sanctuary, the space I'd built from nothing. The living room still held the scent of fresh paint from last month's accent wall. Photos lined the mantel, documenting my journey, college graduation, first job, the day I got the house keys, last year's promotion to senior analyst. In my home office, I unlocked the bottom desk drawer. The folder sat there, exactly where I'd placed it 3 weeks ago after the private investigator delivered his final report. I hadn't been sure I'd ever need it. Part of me had hoped I wouldn't. Walking back outside, I saw them already discussing room assignments. Emily wanted to convert my office into a nursery. Daniel was eyeing the garage for a workshop. Mom was even suggesting they keep me on as a renter in the basement. My basement isn't finished, I said, settling back into my chair, but I appreciate your concern for my housing situation. So, you'll do it? Emily's face lit up. You'll transfer the deed? I placed the folder on the table. I want to make sure I understand this correctly. You want my house because you're pregnant and married. That makes you worthy of my property. Those are the qualifications that matter here. Pregnancy and marriage. And family. Mom added firmly. We're family. That should be enough. Family? I echoed. Right. So, family loyalty is important to everyone here. Heads nodded around the table. Gus whined softly, pressing against my leg. Then I should probably tell you all something. I opened the folder, removing the first page. About 6 months ago, I started noticing some things. Little inconsistencies. Emily, you mentioned feeling sick one morning. Said it had been happening for weeks. This was back in February, but you didn't announce your pregnancy until April. Emily's smile faltered. So? Some women wait to announce. True. I pulled out another document. Daniel, you mentioned your business trip to Austin in January. Said it was a crucial pitch that lasted a week. What's your point? His tone sharpened. My point is that I hired someone to look into some things that were bothering me. See, I remembered Emily calling me in January, crying about how you were never home, how distant you'd become. I slid a photograph across the table. Turns out Daniel wasn't in Austin that week. He was in Nashville. Company records confirm it. Daniel grabbed the photo. His face drained of color. And Emily, I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. You weren't at the spa retreat you told everyone about. You were also in Nashville. Same hotel, actually. Different room, but the same floor. How dare you spy on us? Emily's voice cracked. You had no right. I had every right to protect myself, I shot back. Something felt wrong, so I investigated. And what I found was fascinating. You weren't in Nashville together, though. Daniel was there with his coworkers. You were there with someone else. A man named Ryan Miller. The name dropped like a bomb. Emily's hands started shaking. Daniel stared at her, confusion morphing into something darker. "Who the hell is Ryan Miller?" he demanded. "Tell him, Emily," I said, "or I will." She looked at Mom and Dad, panic clear in her eyes. They looked equally stunned, their confident expressions crumbling. "He's no one," Emily whispered. "Just someone from college. We ran into each other, had drinks, caught up for 3 days. I pulled out hotel records, room service for 2. These receipts paint a different picture than catching up." "You're lying." Mom's chair scraped against the deck. "Emily wouldn't do that." "She did." I removed the DNA test results, holding them up. "Which brings us to the real question. Daniel, when exactly did you and Emily start trying for a baby?" "Late December," he said mechanically, still staring at his wife. "We decided right after Christmas." "December," I repeated. "And Emily announced the pregnancy in March. Let's do the math. She's 5 months along now in July. That means conception happened around early February. But you weren't intimate in February because you told me yourself Daniel was traveling for work that entire month. You complained about it." The truth settled over the gathering like a storm cloud. Daniel stood slowly, the photo crumbling in his fist. I continued, "The investigator discovered that while Daniel was legitimately in Nashville for work in January, Emily was also there, same city, different hotel, with a man named Ryan Miller. They spent 4 days together." Emily made a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. Daniel stepped back from the table, his face a mask of betrayal and rage. "Ryan Miller," I said, watching the name land like a bomb. Someone Emily knew from college. Someone she'd reconnected with last summer and had been seeing for nearly 8 months. The investigator documented multiple meetings between November and February. Coffee shops, hotels, even a weekend at Ryan's family cabin. "No," Emily said, tears streaming down her face. "No, that's not. You can't know that. Credit card receipts, security camera footage from hotel lobbies, witness statements," I replied. "It's all documented." Ryan believed Emily was single, by the way. She told him she was a freelance graphic designer. He had no idea about Daniel until 3 weeks ago when the investigator made contact to request a DNA sample. Daniel staggered slightly. "DNA sample?" "Ryan provided one willingly," I confirmed. Once he understood the situation, once he realized Emily had lied to him too, he cooperated fully. He wanted to know the truth as much as anyone. "This is a prenatal paternity test. Non-invasive, done using fetal DNA from Emily's bloodstream. It requires 3 samples, the mother's blood, the alleged father's DNA, and the biological father's DNA for comparison. I collected Emily's sample from a water glass she left here. Daniel, you used my bathroom last month and borrowed a toothbrush. And Ryan provided his sample through the investigator. The test results are 99.9% conclusive. The baby isn't yours, Daniel. It's Ryan Miller's." Silence stretched across the backyard. Even the birds seemed to have stopped singing. Uncle Mark shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Aunt Lisa's mouth hung open, her fork suspended halfway to her plate. The potato salad she brought sat forgotten, congealing in the summer heat. "This is insane," Emily finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You can't just accuse me of something like this in front of everyone." "You can't accuse?" I raised an eyebrow. "I'm not accusing. I'm presenting facts backed by scientific evidence. There's a difference." Daniel still hadn't moved. His knuckles were white where he gripped the edge of the table. "When," he said slowly, each word deliberate. "Did you collect these samples?" "Over the past month," I replied. "Emily left a water glass here after dinner 3 weeks ago. Daniel, you used my bathroom and borrowed a toothbrush 2 weeks ago. Both samples were clean, uncontaminated. Ryan's sample was collected by the investigator with his full consent and understanding of why it was needed. That's invasion of privacy. Dad thundered, finally finding his voice. You can't just take people's DNA without permission. Actually, collection from discarded items in my own home is legal, I corrected him calmly. I consulted with a lawyer before proceeding. The test itself was conducted by a certified laboratory. Everything was done properly and legally. Ryan signed consent forms. The results are conclusive. Mom's face had gone pale. Even if this is true, airing your sister's private business like this is cruel. You could have come to us privately. Privately? I let out a bitter laugh. Like how you all privately decided to take my house. Like how you privately planned this ambush during what I thought was a family gathering. You wanted a public declaration of my obligations. I'm giving you a public revelation of the truth you were all willing to ignore. Emily was crying harder now, her shoulders shaking. It was supposed to be simple, she sobbed. Nobody was supposed to get hurt. You thought you could get away with it, I finished for her. You thought Daniel would never question paternity. You thought Ryan would stay in Nashville and never know. You thought you could build an entire life on deception and nobody would ever check the foundation. People make mistakes, Mom pleaded, reaching for Emily's hand. She's young. She was confused. Relationships are complicated. Don't minimize this. I cut her off sharply. This isn't leaving the toilet seat up or forgetting an anniversary. She cheated on her fiancé multiple times, got pregnant by another man, and was about to let Daniel raise a child that isn't his. That's not a mistake. That's a calculated series of choices. Daniel finally spoke again, his voice hollow. How long have you known? 3 weeks, I admitted. The results came back 3 weeks ago. I've been trying to figure out what to do with the information. Ryan was informed immediately. He's consulting with lawyers about his rights as the biological father, and he wants to be involved. Daniel's eyes met mine. And you chose today. Why today? Because today you all showed me exactly who you are, I said. Today you made it crystal clear that my value to this family is measured only by what I can provide, my house, my resources, my sacrifice. None of you care about me as a person. You care about what you can extract from me. That's not fair. Aunt Lisa protested weakly. We care about you. Do you? I challenged her. When's the last time anyone asked about my job, my life, my goals? When's the last time anyone celebrated something I accomplished without immediately comparing it to Emily or suggesting how it could benefit her? The silence that followed answered my question more effectively than words could have. Exactly. I'm invisible until you need something. I'm selfish until I'm useful. I'm dramatic until I'm compliant. Well, I'm done being those things for people who don't actually see me. Daniel stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the deck. I need to leave. I can't. I can't be here right now. Daniel, wait. Emily scrambled to her feet, reaching for him. Please, let me explain. Explain what? He jerked away from her touch. Explain how you slept with someone else? Explain how you lied to me for months? Explain how you were going to let me raise another man's child without ever telling me the truth? I didn't know for sure, she cried desperately. I wasn't certain until when, he demanded. Until my sister-in-law had to order a DNA test because something felt wrong to her? Until someone outside our relationship cared more about honesty than you did? The words hit like hammers. Emily flinched with each one, tears streaming down her face. I love you, she whispered. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. Doesn't that count for something? Daniel's laugh was harsh and broken. Love? You don't betray people you love. You don't lie to them. You don't trap them into raising another man's baby. He looked at me. Thank you for telling me. I wish you told me sooner, but I understand why you didn't. This must have been impossible for you. It was, I admitted quietly. You're a good person, Daniel. You deserve better than this. He nodded once, then turned and walked away. We all watched him disappear around the side of the house. Heard his car start, listened as he drove away. The sound of his departure felt final, like a door slamming shut on everything Emily had tried to build. Look what you've done, Dad said, his voice tight with anger. You've destroyed your sister's marriage. You've torn this family apart. Are you happy now? I destroyed nothing, I replied firmly. Emily destroyed her own marriage when she cheated. You all tried to tear my life apart when you demanded my house. I simply refused to let it happen. We're your family. Mom's voice cracked. You're supposed to protect us, support us, help us through difficult times. Protect you from what? I asked incredulously. From the consequences of your own actions? From the truth? That's not protection, Mom. That's enabling. That's being complicit in hurting innocent people. Uncle Mark stood up, hands raised in a peacekeeping gesture. Maybe we all need to calm down and think about this rationally. Emotions are running high. Sit down, Mark, I said tiredly. There's nothing to mediate here. The facts are the facts. Emily cheated. The baby isn't Daniel's. You all tried to manipulate me into giving up my house. Those things happened. No amount of calming down changes reality. But family is supposed to stick together, he insisted. Through thick and thin, through mistakes and problems. That's what family means. Family is supposed to be built on honesty and respect, I countered. Not manipulation and exploitation, not lies and betrayal. You can't demand loyalty while showing none in return. Emily had collapsed back into her chair, her face buried in her hands. Her whole body shook with sobs. Mom hovered over her, stroking her hair, shooting me venomous looks. She's pregnant and fragile. Mom hissed. This stress isn't good for the baby. Then maybe she should have thought about that before building her life on lies, I responded. Actions have consequences. The baby's father is Ryan Miller. He has a right to know. Daniel had a right to know. I had a right not to be manipulated into funding a life based on deception. Dad's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You're being sanctimonious and cruel. Nobody's perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. But exposing those mistakes publicly, hurting people deliberately, that's vindictive. Vindictive would have been staying silent, I corrected him. Letting Daniel raise another man's child in ignorance. Letting Ryan never know he has a son or daughter. Letting Emily continue lying to everyone. That would have been cruel. The truth hurts, but it's still better than living in deception. Easy for you to say. Emily lifted her head. Mascara streaked across her cheeks. You've never made a serious mistake. You've never done anything wrong. You're perfect, right? Saying whatever you are with your perfect house and perfect job and perfect life. I've made plenty of mistakes, I said quietly. The difference is I own them. I don't lie about them. I don't try to make other people pay for them. And I certainly don't demand that others sacrifice their lives to cover up my poor choices. This is about the house, she spat suddenly, anger breaking through her tears. You're doing this because we asked for the house. You're so petty and selfish that you'd rather destroy my entire life than give up some property. The accusation was so absurd, I almost laughed. You think I orchestrated your affair? You think I somehow made you cheat on Daniel and get pregnant by another man? Emily, I found out about your actions. I didn't create them. But you're using them against me, she shouted. You could have kept quiet. You could have let me figure things out on my own. But no, you had to play detective and ruin everything. Figure things out on your own? I repeated slowly. You mean continue lying to your husband? Continue planning to take my house? Continue building your future on fraud? That's what you wanted to figure out? She had no response to that. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words emerged. Aunt Lisa gathered her purse, clearly desperate to escape the carnage. I think I should go. This is too much family drama for me. Stay, Mom commanded. We need to present a united front here. United front? Lisa looked at her sister incredulously. United in what? Defending lying and cheating? Demanding someone give up their home? I'm sorry, but I can't support this. Any of it. She looked at me. I'm sorry I laughed earlier. You didn't deserve that. Your house is yours, and nobody should try to take it from you. She left quickly, practically fleeing to her car. Uncle Mark followed moments later, mumbling something about needing to get home. I think you should all leave now, I said calmly. This is my house, my property, my space, and none of you are welcome here anymore. You can't be serious. Uncle Mark protested. Over one mistake. One mistake? I gathered the documents back into the folder. Let me be clear about what happened here today. You all conspired to pressure me into giving up something I worked for because you decided Emily deserved it more. You laughed at my accomplishments. You dismissed my life. You tried to manipulate me through family obligation while ignoring your own responsibilities to honesty and respect. I stood, Gus rising with me. The one mistake wasn't Emily's affair. The mistake was thinking any of you had the right to determine what I do with my life and my property. The mistake was assuming I'd be too weak or too desperate for approval to stand up for myself. Where will Emily go? Mom asked, tears in her eyes. Her apartment is too small. That's between Emily, Daniel, and Ryan Miller to figure out, I replied, heading toward my back door. I'm sure Ryan will want to be involved in his child's life. Maybe they can work something out. Please, Emily called after me. Please don't do this. I'm sorry. I made mistakes, but I'm still your sister. I paused at the threshold of my home. You're right. You are my sister, which makes what you tried to do today even worse. You knew how hard I worked for this place. You knew what it meant to me, and you still thought you deserved to take it. We're family, Dad said desperately. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It meant everything, I replied. Until you made it clear that family only flows one direction. You take from me but give to Emily. You demand my sacrifice but celebrate her selfishness. You laugh at my choices while elevating hers, even when those choices involve betrayal and deception. I looked at each of them in turn. Family should mean support and respect. It should mean celebrating each other's successes, not trying to steal them. It should mean honesty, not conspiracy and manipulation. Gus followed me inside. Before closing the door, I delivered my final words. The DNA results have been sent to Daniel's email and Ryan Miller's as well. I suggest you all figure out how you're going to handle the truth. As for me and my house and my dog, we're going to be just fine. Better than fine, actually. We're going to be free from people who see us as resources to exploit rather than individuals to respect. The door clicked shut behind me. Through the window, I watched the implosion continue. Daniel stood and walked away without a word to Emily, who collapsed into Mom's arms. Dad argued with Uncle Mark. Aunt Lisa gathered her things, shaking her head. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Emily's name flashed on the screen. I declined the call. Then Mom's name appeared. Declined. Dad called next, then Emily again. Then Mom once more. I silenced the phone entirely and sat on my couch. Gus rested his head on my lap. Those soulful eyes full of unconditional love. No judgment, no manipulation, no hidden agendas, just pure, honest companionship. You know what, Gus? I scratched behind his ears. Mom was right about one thing. I do have just a dog. And honestly, that's better than anything they offered me today. My laptop sat on the coffee table, still open to the private investigator's full report. I'd only shared a fraction of what I'd learned. The complete file detailed not just Emily's affair with Ryan, but also financial issues I'd discovered while helping her with tax questions last year. She'd been using a credit card that Daniel didn't monitor closely, one he'd added her to as an authorized user. The statements went to her email, not his. She'd racked up nearly $12,000 in charges he knew nothing about, shopping sprees, spa treatments, gifts for Ryan that Daniel had never seen. When I found the statements during the tax help session, she'd sworn it was temporary, that she'd pay it off before Daniel noticed. She never did. The balance kept growing. I debated including this information during the confrontation, but decided against it. The DNA revelation was enough to destroy the facade. Adding financial deception would have felt like overkill, though Daniel deserved to know about that, too. I made a mental note to send him the relevant documents privately. The full scope of Emily's deception was staggering. According to the investigator's timeline, she'd been seeing Ryan for nearly 8 months before getting engaged to Daniel. Ryan, for his part, genuinely believed Emily was single. He had no idea about Daniel until the investigator made contact. His reaction, according to the report, had been shock, followed by horror. He'd immediately cut off contact with Emily, provided his DNA sample willingly once he understood why it was needed, and started documenting everything for potential legal purposes. The doorbell rang, jarring me from my thoughts. Gus lifted his head, ears perked. I approached the door cautiously, half expecting another family member. Through the peephole, I saw Daniel standing on my porch, hands in his pockets, looking utterly defeated. I opened the door. "Are you okay?" "No," he said simply. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, letting him enter. Gus approached him carefully, sensing his distress. Daniel knelt down, burying his face in Gus's fur. The dog stood perfectly still, offering the comfort only animals seem to understand how to give. "I need to know everything," Daniel said after a long moment. "Not just what you told everyone today. Everything you found out." We sat at my kitchen table. The investigator's report spread between us. I walked him through every detail, every timeline, every piece of evidence. He listened in silence, his face growing harder with each revelation. "The credit card," he whispered when I reached that section. "I noticed some charges last month that seemed high." She said she'd been treating herself, that she deserved it after all the stress. I didn't push because I didn't want to seem controlling. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I know this is overwhelming." "Overwhelming doesn't begin to cover it." He ran his hands through his hair. "I thought we had problems, sure, every couple does, but I thought we were building something real." "You were," I offered. "She just wasn't building the same thing." He looked at me, eyes red-rimmed. "How long have you suspected something was wrong?" I thought back carefully. "Since January. Emily called me crying about how distant you'd become. How you were never home. But I knew you'd been traveling for legitimate work." Something about her story didn't add up, so I started paying closer attention. Little inconsistencies. Her being unavailable when she said she'd be free. Expenses that didn't match her explanations. Then she mentioned feeling exhausted and nauseous in late February. And I knew something was seriously wrong because you two weren't even trying for a baby yet. Why didn't you tell me sooner? The question I'd been dreading. Because I wasn't sure at first, I admitted. I had suspicions, but suspicions aren't facts. I needed proof before I destroyed someone's life. The investigator took time to build a solid case. The DNA test required getting all 3 samples and waiting for laboratory results. And honestly, part of me hoped I was wrong, that there was some innocent explanation for everything. But there wasn't. No, there wasn't. He stared at the documents, the evidence of his fiancée's betrayal laid out in clinical detail. The baby, he said suddenly. I was going to be a father. We'd even picked out names together. Ryan's daughter, I said gently. Not yours. I was going to be a father. His voice cracked. I was excited. Scared, but excited. I started reading parenting books. I was learning about car seats and cribs and all the things babies need. And none of it was real. None of it was mine. I'm sorry, I said again, feeling the inadequacy of the words. Don't apologize. He shook his head firmly. You saved me. If you hadn't found out, if you hadn't told me, I would have spent the rest of my life living a lie, raising another man's child without knowing. That would have been worse. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of the revelation settling over us like dust after an explosion. Your parents, he said eventually, the house thing. What was that really about? I sighed. Control. I think they've always used financial manipulation to keep family in line. They paid for Emily's college, so she owed them. They helped with her car, so she owed them. They wanted me to give her the house, so she'd owe them even more. And you? I never took their money. I worked for everything I have, which means they don't have leverage over me. That makes them uncomfortable. So, they try to create leverage by guilting me into giving away my property. Exactly. He leaned back in his chair, processing. Your family is messed up. I'm aware. What are you going to do now? Live my life, I said simply, without them in it, without the drama and manipulation and constant demands. Just me and Gus and the space I've created for myself. That sounds peaceful. It does, doesn't it? He stood to leave, gathering the copies of documents I'd given him. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you regret telling everyone today, blowing up your family like that? I considered the question carefully. No, I finally answered. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that people I love turned out to be people I couldn't trust, but I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret refusing to be their doormat. And I don't regret giving you the truth, even though it hurt. He nodded slowly. Thank you for everything, for caring enough about honesty to do the hard thing. After he left, I returned to the couch. Gus resumed his position with his head on my lap. The house felt quieter than usual, but not in a bad way. It felt like the quiet after a storm, when the air is clear and you can finally breathe deeply. My phone continued buzzing periodically. Messages from relatives I barely knew, people who had heard about the barbecue disaster through the family grapevine. Some were supportive, praising me for standing up for myself. Others were critical, accusing me of being dramatic and cruel. I deleted them all without responding. Their opinions didn't matter. They didn't know the full story, and I had no obligation to explain myself to people who had never bothered to know me beyond family functions. One message caught my attention though, from my cousin Jessica, who lived across the country and only came home for major holidays. I heard about what happened. Good for you. Our family has always had a problem with enabling Emily's behavior. Someone needed to draw a line. Sorry it had to be you, but I'm proud of you for doing it. I saved that message. It was nice to know at least one person understood. The next few days brought a tsunami of messages. Emily left voicemails begging for forgiveness, claiming she hadn't known about the paternity issue, insisting she truly believed Daniel was the father. Mom sent long texts about family loyalty and forgiveness. Dad tried the stern approach, ordering me to reconsider my dramatic overreaction. I ignored them all. Daniel surprisingly reached out with a brief message, "Thank you for telling me. I wish it had been sooner, but I understand why you waited. I filed for divorce. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." Ryan Miller also contacted me. Confused but grateful for the information, he asked if we could meet to discuss the situation. I declined, but provided him with Emily's contact information and suggested he speak with a family lawyer. Uncle Mark showed up at my door once, attempting to mediate. I listened politely to his speech about family bonds and second chances, then quietly closed the door without response. He didn't return. The real aftermath came slowly, in pieces. Through mutual friends, I learned that Daniel had indeed filed for divorce, citing adultery. Emily moved back in with our parents, her apartment too painful a reminder of her destroyed marriage. Ryan Miller hired an attorney and initiated proceedings to establish paternity and custody rights. Mom tried showing up unannounced several times. I didn't answer the door. After the third attempt, I sent a single text, "I need space. Please respect that." 3 months passed before I heard from Emily again. This time, she didn't call or text. She sent a letter, handwritten on pale blue stationery. "I don't expect forgiveness," it read. "I don't even deserve a response. But I need you to know that you were right about everything. I was selfish. I was dishonest. I built my life on lies and expected you to support the structure without question. The worst part is I knew what I was doing. I knew that baby wasn't Daniel's. I just hoped I could make everyone believe it was, including myself." The letter continued for 3 pages, confessions, apologies, acknowledgments of years of favoritism and manipulation. She detailed how Mom and Dad had orchestrated the barbecue announcement, how they coached her and Daniel on what to say, how certain they'd been that I would cave under family pressure. "You always did before," she wrote. "Every time they asked you to sacrifice something for me, you did it. Birthday parties, graduation celebrations, family vacations planned around my schedule. You made yourself small so I could be big. And I let you. I encouraged it. I benefited from it without ever questioning if it was right." The final paragraph made my hands shake. "I'm having a daughter. Ryan wants to be involved, which is more than I deserve. Mom and Dad are barely speaking to me since the truth came out to everyone else in the family. People know I cheated. No, I lied. No, I tried to steal your house. I've lost most of my friends. Daniel won't even look at me when we have to communicate through lawyers. And you know what the worst part is? I deserve all of it. Every consequence, every judgment, every loss. I just wish I'd figured that out before I destroyed everything, including any chance of having my sister in my life." I read the letter 3 times, then placed it in a drawer. I didn't respond. 6 months after the barbecue, I got a promotion at work. Senior analyst to department manager. Substantial raise, corner office with windows overlooking the city. I celebrated alone with Gus, ordering takeout and watching bad television. A year later, I adopted a second dog, a rescue named Daisy, a German Shepherd mix with anxiety issues and a fear of men. She and Gus bonded immediately, creating a small pack that filled my house with joy. My home, my sanctuary, grew more beautiful with each passing season. I renovated the kitchen, updated the bathrooms, landscaped the backyard into a garden paradise. Every improvement was mine, earned through my work, unmarred by anyone else's claims or expectations. Daniel reached out occasionally, brief messages checking in. We developed a cautious friendship, built on mutual respect and shared experience. He'd started dating. Someone new, a teacher named Sarah, who made him laugh again. "Thank you," he said one afternoon over coffee, "for having the guts to tell me the truth. I spent 6 months angry at you for exposing everything, but you saved me from a lifetime of lies." Ryan Miller sent a birth announcement when Emily's daughter arrived. Chloe Ann Miller, 7 pounds, healthy and beautiful. The card included no personal message, just the basic information and a photo. I tucked it into the drawer with Emily's letter. Mom tried one last reconciliation attempt on Christmas Eve, showing up with wrapped presents and tears. "Please," she begged through my doorway. "It's been almost 2 years. Can't we move past this?" "Move past what, exactly?" I asked. "The part where you tried to steal my house? The part where you laughed at my life? The part where you chose Emily's lies over my honesty?" "We made mistakes," she admitted. "Your father and I, we realize that now. We showed favoritism. We pushed too hard. We took you for granted." "Yes," I agreed. "You did all those things. So, can you forgive us?" I considered the question carefully. Maybe someday. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending things are fine. It doesn't mean giving you access to my life so you can make the same mistakes again. "We wouldn't," she protested. "You thought you were entitled to my house," I reminded her. "You thought my accomplishments were yours to redistribute. Until you understand why that was wrong, until you can articulate exactly how you failed me, we have nothing to discuss." She left the presents on my porch. I donated them to charity, unopened. Dad never reached out. Through the family grapevine, I learned he felt betrayed by my dramatic response and maintained that I'd overreacted. He'd apparently told several relatives that I'd always been difficult and ungrateful. The labels didn't sting anymore. Difficult meant having boundaries. Ungrateful meant refusing to accept mistreatment disguised as generosity. Aunt Lisa apologized eventually, a brief email acknowledging she should have spoken up during the barbecue. "I knew something felt wrong," she wrote. "But I didn't want to cause problems. I'm sorry I stayed silent." I appreciated the gesture, but didn't pursue rebuilding the relationship. Some bridges, once burned, aren't worth reconstructing. 3 years after that 4th of July barbecue, I hosted my own Independence Day celebration. Small guest list: Daniel and Sarah, a few colleagues from work, my neighbor Brenda, who'd become a close friend. Gus and Daisy greeted everyone enthusiastically, the perfect hosts. We grilled burgers, played yard games, watched fireworks from my deck. Nobody questioned my worth. Nobody demanded my property. Nobody laughed at my choices. "This place is incredible," Sarah said, admiring the garden. "You've done such beautiful work with it." "Thank you," I replied simply. "It's taken time, but it's exactly what I wanted." "Must be nice," Daniel added, "having space that's truly yours. No strings, no obligations, just pure ownership." I smiled, watching Gus chase Daisy through the sprinklers. "It really is." Later that night, after everyone left and the dogs settled down, I sat on my porch with a glass of wine. The house behind me glowed with warm light. My house, my achievement, my peace. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. "This is Emily. I'm using a new phone. I know you don't want to hear from me, and I'll respect that after this message, but I wanted you to know that Chloe started walking today. She took 5 steps before falling. Ryan was there. He's been amazing through everything. I'm getting therapy, working on myself. Mom and Dad barely see Chloe. They can't accept that Ryan's her father. They wanted me to keep lying, even after everything. I refused. First time I ever chose honesty over their approval. Probably should have done that years ago. You were right about everything. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. I read the message twice, then deleted it. Not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. Emily's journey toward growth and honesty was admirable, but it wasn't my responsibility to witness or validate it. My life had become something I never expected. Genuinely mine. No performance for family approval. No sacrifices to maintain relationships that drained more than they gave. No twisting myself into shapes designed to make others comfortable. Just me, my dogs, my home, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd stood up for myself when it mattered most. The house was worth more now than when I bought it. Market appreciation, plus my improvements, had nearly doubled its value. Sometimes I imagine what would have happened if I'd given in that day. If I'd transferred the deed to Emily and Daniel, they'd have built their family on my sacrifice, erected their future on my foundation. And when the lies collapsed, when the truth emerged, I'd have lost everything with nothing to show for it. Instead, I'd lost a family that never truly valued me, and gained something infinitely more precious, self-respect. Gus padded out onto the porch, resting his head on my knee. Daisy followed, circling twice before settling at my feet. The three of us sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge. Just a dog, I murmured, remembering Mom's dismissive words. Just a dog and a house and a life I built myself. Gus's tail thumped against the deck. In his simple way, he understood. This was enough. This was everything. This was exactly what I needed, and it was mine. What would you have done if your family tried to take your house?